Chapter 335, The Constellations Auction. 2. The 68th floor stage is now up for auction. The 69th floor stage is now up for auction. I blankly listened to the messages ringing one after another in my head, becoming so bewildered that my face almost turned into a fish face, like a carp bread. Face like this. No. This pun isn't quite right. Let's just keep staring blankly. The 70th floor stage is now up for auction. Stop. Finally, the last floor among the stages that could participate in the auction was put up for sale. The pillar of the tower, the wand of ages, announced the end of the listings. Beyond this point is not the territory I oversee. If you want to escape from the Death King, you should look for another pillar. There might be constellations who don't know who I am, or even constellations hearing about the existence of a pillar for the first time, but consider this a special case. The message cut off, and silence ensued all around. Now, since the items have been listed, shall we look for a buyer? It wasn't long. I will explain the gist of the auction. Click, the wand of ages, tapped the air with the end of the staff. As you know, the Death King is a hunter, in other words, a challenger climbing the tower towards the 100th floor, sky's extreme point. He is also a constellation who has received the name, the sky that gathers screams, though not fully blossomed yet. Indeed. Hunter is also a term used in the tower for those who climb it. So, from now on, it's not a fight between a teacher giving a test and a student taking it, but a fair duel between warriors. The magician's voice was low in tone and temperature. Like the sound of a piano softly playing outdoors on a winter day. Constellations dwelling above in the tower momentarily became spectators, listening to the magician's song. I believe every warrior has the right to flee from a duel. The magician's eyes were silver. A sword should only be wielded by those who wish to use it in a duel. Eyes resembling the color of a blade looked at me. So, who willingly wants to duel with the Death King? Among the countless constellations, which beast hasn't forgotten the joy of victory? Who is the snake that, even after ascending to the sky, cannot shed the pleasure of its scales scraping against the ground? Which star, even after being embraced by the tower master, refuses to serve as its master? What light is it scattering now? Click, with that. The magician rolled his tongue inside his mouth. 64th floor. Auction starts. The bird that burns fire bids. As soon as the magician finished speaking, someone sent out a message. The bird that burns fire warns not to bid higher than itself unless one wishes to die. The magician tilted his head. Well, using that tone might just invite more people eager to jump in, you know? The bird that burns fire advises to participate in the auction from the next stage onwards if one does not wish to die. Good. Much better. I found it hard to spot the difference between the two sentences, but it seemed the magician heard a significant distinction. An unknown constellation continuously sent out messages. The bird that burns fire suggests a method for the auction. The bird that burns fire states that it is logical to auction off the next floor every time the Death King defeats a stage, rather than deciding the administrator for up to the 70th floor all at once. The bird that burns fire argues very logically that this is because if the Death King is defeated at the 64th floor, only the constellation that bid for the 65th floor would end up becoming the fool. The magician closed his left eye. That makes sense. The bird that burns fire reminds everyone that it always speaks the truth. Let's assume that's the case. But the most important thing remains. The magician looked up at the sky. The bid? How much do you want to pay for the rights to manage? The bird that burns fire answers. Everything it has. The magician nodded. There's no reason not to accept. The administrator for the 64th floor will be changed from the righteous nine-tailed fox to the bird that burns fire. And with that, it was over. The magician turned his head and looked at me. Death King. Step onto the next stage. The fox wrapped around my neck chirped softly. Fox was flicking its tail, asking for my decision. Yes. I see no reason not to accept. I put the snake, Hishmith Crits, that was on my palm into my pocket. Then, I lightly ignored the low hiss it made as I nodded my head. Honestly, this snake was not satisfying enough to slice. Please, God, I ask of you. Peep. Upon my words, Fox did not hesitate and immediately declared. Quest cleared. The 63rd floor stage has been cleared. A music box only for you will assign you the same quest from the 64th to the 69th floor as the previous stages. You will be immediately transferred to the 64th floor as per your request. Sandstorms enveloped my vision. 3. Zombie. While the scent that crossed the desert wrapped around my nose and swirled through my body, in that brief moment, Behurayang spoke directly to my consciousness. I climbed up to the 99th floor but didn't know about the pillars. Thinking about it, it's not like I never encountered a pillar. I must have met one and forgotten about it. To those pillar folks, there must be the authority to erase memories related to themselves. That's right. It must be so. Maybe after all this is over, that is, after you climb up to the 70th floor, the memories might all disappear. It's possible. But the likelihood of that happening is low. Behurayang said. You met the Tower Master. No matter how great those pillars are, they can't erase the time marked with meaning by the Tower Master. His voice was calm yet filled with regret. You and I walked different paths. The Sword Emperor said. Follow that path. Finally, the sandstorm completely obscured my vision. Now, there's no one who would dare look down on you as weak. And then, I opened my eyes. You have entered the 64th stage. Upon opening my eyes, there was only gray. Only ash stretched endlessly to the horizon. The bird that burns fire manifests. In the middle of that world, a phoenix, a bird entirely engulfed in flames, was fluttering its vast wings. 4. It was regrettable. An intense smell clung to the mucous membrane of my nose. It was the smell of burning. The bird, engulfed in flames, could easily wrap the world with its 2 wings. The wings traversed between heaven and earth, and due to the burning wings, there was no distinction between up and down. Looking up or down, everything was burned to ashes. When the Sword Emperor ascended the tower with overwhelming momentum, I ignored him. I scorned him. Thus, I lost the opportunity to contend with the highest-reaching warrior since the tower was erected. It was regrettable, deeply regrettable. I gripped the hilt of my sword. I understand why you participated in the auction. The eyes of the phoenix looked down at me. In fact, it was unclear whether it even had eyes. The phoenix was constantly burning, and there was no part that the flames did not engulf. So, probably the phoenix was glaring at me not with the eyes of the flesh but with the eyes of the soul. You are said to be a successor of the Sword Emperor. Is that true? Even with ears burning in fire, you only pick the correct words to hear. Good. It's a good opportunity. I cannot allow myself to bear 2 regrets. The phoenix fluttered its wings. The ash that settled on the world stirred, swept up by the wing beats. The gray snowflakes fluttered, brushing against my cheeks. I am the burning fire, a calamity and an ominous bird. I wish to be the last fire left in the world. I am the Death King. I wiped the ash off my cheek. My mouth felt gritty. Ash had swept into my throat, filling it. Willingly chewing and swallowing the remnants left by the fire, I showed my respect for the duel. I am the sword that wishes to break other swords. Further conversation was pointless. In no time, the adjudicator who had followed me onto the stage, the Wand of Ages, stood between us. The magician lifted his long staff and tapped the ground lightly. Taking that subtle signal as my cue, I charged across the ash heap. Hishmith crits. Fulfill your promise. The loser from the previous stage responded to my command. The eye living in the labyrinth manifests its power. Wriggle. The thread-like snake crawled out of my pocket and coiled around my wrist like a bracelet. The snake had sworn to assist me in conquering the tower, thus fulfilling its promise. The eye living in the labyrinth exposes the enemy's information. Within the flow of aura, time slowed, and in the sluggish current, characters were etched before my eyes. I could see the enemy's true name. The bird that burns fire. Dokiel Superscript 1. Following that, the origin of the phoenix were embroidered in the void. In one stroke. The writing of Hishmith Crits was as twisted as his own body, yet as clear as the gleam in a hermit's eye, making it easy to read. Plus. Dokiel is fire. If water represents the righteous path as it flows downward, fire is the rebellious heart going against it. Dokiel's fire symbolizes emotion. Fire consumes others to grow itself. It has no eyes to see the world. Therefore, Dokiel governs the realm of emotion, specifically the blinded ones, hatred, loathing, and most of all, the pleasure that melts away in self-display. It screams as if about to die immediately but never dies. In fact, it only kills others. If I was lost in the pleasure of observing others, Dokiel is addicted to displaying himself. Demanding to be the sole focus, its reality is such that without anything around to burn, it cannot burn itself. Its names are the fire that burns fire, the self that consumes itself, blindness. Merely a fire that has gone blind. Plus. Indeed. I instantly pierced through the identity of the phoenix. It wasn't just a grudge for not being able to fight the Sword Emperor. The constellation's wings fluttered. In other words, the phoenix squinted its eyes. Despite having an appearance far removed from humans, I was confident in my ability to read the expression of fire more than anyone. I saw its psychology through the angle at which the flames wrapped around the constellation bent, the way the flames split, and the signs of embers burning. You were merely vexed for not participating in the event known as the Sword Emperor. A duel between warriors wasn't your interest. I've fought with the Sword Emperor once. I have exchanged swords with him. You're just longing for that title. Envious of the constellations who had it in the past, jealous of those who lost to me, and envious of the genuine constellations who could truly compete against me, you too wanted to join in. I swung my sword while transmitting my voice. Right now, in your head, you're not contemplating how to defeat me, but rather how to stage the most plausible scene to engrave yourself in the memories of other constellations. The phoenix couldn't refute my words. Not that it chose not to, but it couldn't. It wasn't for lack of a rebuttal, but for lack of time to do so. The phoenix couldn't keep up with the accelerated pace of time I had invoked with my aura. When it attempted to utter a single word, I had already spilled a dozen, leaving it no turn to counter. If that was the case with its voice, imagine the speed of the sword. Perhaps it was you who bestowed the flame skill upon.
Yo. So. Ha!
Sword Emperor had once appraised, saying that Estelle, the Devil King of Fall Rain, was a D-class constellation. Even if we purely consider the power they possessed, this Firebird would also be about that level. Between D+ and C- grade. I have no time to entertain someone who has no intention of fighting me. A flash. I declared with dual meanings. Be extinguished. And I cut down the constellation that could have become
Yo. So. Ha!
S deity. Screams followed. If it took years to cut down the Devil King of Fall Rain, this time, not even seconds were needed. The 64th floor. Duel concluded. The victor is the Death King. The Wand of Ages, having observed the entire fight, declared. The voice quietly settled in the midst of the ash swirling in the air. Then, let's immediately start the auction for the 65th floor. Chapter 336, The Constellations Auction. 3. 5. I have many constellations. It sounds like a sentence that could become a novel title. Something like, my constellations are infinite, or, I have 999,999,999 constellations. That's how many constellations I have. Peep. Firstly, around my neck is Fox Nim. A music box only for you, is coiled around tightly. Instead of seizing the world's time, God has grasped my time. The proof? Foxnim always uses its tail as a scarf, gently tightening around my breath. Its ability is perfect interference immunity. No one can deny my time. Nor can they distort it. Just that alone, but through it, I gained immunity to incomprehensible, causal changes. Key. Kook. And on my wrist is a thread snake. The eye living in the labyrinth hangs like a bracelet. The snake came out of the egg it had made and now must look out at the world outside. It's time not to know the world through the head but to awaken to it with the body. Perhaps the fortunate part is that the knowledge known in the head is quite, no, the most extensive. Its ability is complete secret disclosure. No formidable opponent can hide their secrets in front of me. Birth. Origin. Source. Even strengths and weaknesses. There may be formidable opponents lacking in information, but there are no longer any without any secrets. Just living the dream, aren't we, Kim Zombie? Immunity to status abnormalities, and now you've even got a monster encyclopedia that allows real-time viewing. Behind me is Bei Hurayong. The sword constellation is there. Let's just skip over this gentleman. Goddess of Protection, feels it's about time to sort out the hierarchy. Lastly, there's Shiny. Goddess of Protection points out that everything in the world is lined up in a senior-junior relationship. The first constellation to join the hero was herself, and the one that entered through the most proper route was herself, so rightly, the fox and the snake should respectfully refer to her as senior. Goddess of Protection openly declares that she is generous and lenient towards humans, but strict towards constellations. Shiny is, what exactly? Really, what is it? How did it manage not to reveal its quirks while with Kim Yul? Or did its quirks start to blossom after meeting me? Kim Zombie. They say a sword resembles its master. When it was Constellation Killer's sword, it was as heavy as Constellation Killer, but after becoming your sword, it's as light as rabbit fur. Whose fault could that possibly be? I couldn't possibly know. A mystery indeed. No bids? From a distance, the Wand of Ages spoke. Perhaps my voice was too soft? Let me say it again. The 64th floor has been cleared. Now it's time for the 65th floor. If there are any constellations wanting to bid for the stage, please participate. We can't wait forever. That's right. There's a reason I started bragging about my constellations. Because nobody was participating in the auction. I felt like an auction item that was too expensive to sell. Sigh. Even after 3 minutes, the auction did not proceed. The magician sighed in disappointment. Everyone's scared. They're terrified. After the Phoenix got knocked out by the Death King in one hit, they're completely scared stiff. This is why the constellations these days are said to lack willpower. In the past, it was a bit more. On and on. Meanwhile, the hierarchy war between Fox, the thread snake, and Shiny was fiercely accelerating. A music box only for you politely asks about the well-being of the intelligence inside the skulls of B-grade constellations, wondering where they got the nerve. The eye living in the labyrinth points out as a mere objective fact that it may have been defeated by the Death King, but not by you-nobodies. Goddess of Protection says that speaking of B-grade, being an actual B-grade is truly the strongest, citing Earth's comics as evidence. A music box only for you snorts at using comic writers as a basis for argument. The eye living in the labyrinth threatens to expose your ages. Goddess of Protection says that if they do so, it will reveal that she is the youngest, and tells them to go ahead. Peep? Keek? BRRR. Noisy. They're so noisy. With 3 constellations gathered in one place, there's never a moment of silence. Goddess of Protection suggests a brilliant idea to the hero. What is it? Goddess of Protection mentions the very obvious fact that she is also a constellation. Right. So? Then, she suggests that she could also bid in the auction and win the stage. Huh? I blinked my eyes. Wait. Is that even possible? Goddess of Protection assures that there is no violation of the rules and unsheathes her blade. Don't unsheath it. I got cut. I'm bleeding now. Anyway. My mind raced. Swish. Fiddling with the handle of the sword, I estimated one thing after another. But to win the bid, you need something in exchange, right? Like devotion or something. Isn't that considered currency for constellations? Do you have money? Goddess of Protection smiles triumphantly. Shiny explained as follows. 1. Originally, she was a high-ranking constellation governing protection and immortality. 2. Meanwhile, Constellation Killer founded the Aegim Empire. She established herself as the de facto guardian deity of the Aegim Empire. It was as if she had secured a lifetime pension. 3. But at that exact moment, Kim Yul sealed her. 4. Her followers kept sending their faith, but she couldn't use it because she was sealed. It was like a savings account where deposits kept coming in without any withdrawals, so the faith just accumulated. 5. After a long time, I unsealed her. 6. When she finally checked her neglected account, oh my! Shiny sparkled brightly. Goddess of Protection is confident there is no other constellation with such financial power as herself. In short, Shiny had become a deposit millionaire. Indeed. Being sealed was a blessing in disguise in some sense. Goddess of Protection declares she will show her status. It seemed more like flaunting wealth than showing status, but I couldn't quite point that out. In any case, Shiny did what she could and wanted to do. Goddess of Protection places a bid. The Wand of Ages, who had been urging other constellations to participate in the auction, looked this way. Even in the magician's eyes, which seemed carefree about everything, there was a slight trace of astonishment. If I were to translate that subtle expression into human language, it would be something like, really? Are you really going to do something so petty? Death King, are you really going to do something so petty? My translation skills weren't dead yet. Oh, it wasn't me. It was my sword. Pickpockets also say it was their hand that did it. No, it's different. I'm the nominal owner, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have free will. If it wants to do it, how can I stop it? But still, there's something called ethics and humanity. A music box only for you breaks its savings account. Fox Nim growled around my neck. A music box only for you places a bid. The magician fell silent. I argued. It wasn't me. It was my scarf. The eye living in the labyrinth places a bid. My bracelet just. Oh, really now? The magician pinched his forehead. These damn balsamic sauce-like creatures. Fine. When has life ever gone as I intended? If there's no violation of the rules, do as you please. Goddess of Protection doesn't care anymore, only asking who placed the highest bid. Sigh. The magician sighed. I'll change the manager of the 65th floor to Goddess of Protection. A music box only for you protests that this can't be happening. The eye living in the labyrinth is astonished, asking how much was spent. Without me doing anything, the sheath of the holy sword clattered. Goddess of Protection casts a truly sympathetic glance at the junior's loose purse strings. And then, the expected chaos ensued. Quest cleared. The 64th floor stage has been cleared. The 65th floor manager issues you a quest. Plus. Hero's Swordsmanship. Difficulty, B. Mission objective, the ruler of the 65th floor, Goddess of Protection, Wea, demands that you strike a pose of Hero's Swordsmanship. Note, if the Goddess of Protection finds the pose unsatisfactory, you must strike the pose once more. Plus. I held the sword at an angle. Like how a transforming robot draws its sword to aim at the enemy in the climax scene. Appropriately, the moment I angled the grip, flash. A radiant light burst forth from the blade. Quest cleared. The 65th floor stage has been cleared. That's amazing. I shuddered. This is incredibly underhanded. You're the one being underhanded. But the disgrace didn't end there. Goddess of Protection demands the juniors to call her senior. A music box only for you immediately jumps into the auction for the 66th floor stage. As if refusing to accept this, Fox cried out sharply, and the thread snake also wailed. A music box only for you places a bid. The eye living in the labyrinth places a bid. Goddess of Protection sighs with a look of pity. Goddess of Protection places a bid. What could it be? What exactly are they fighting for? Naturally, deciding on a mascot is bound to get heated. Bei Hurayon chuckled. He perfectly played the part of a local brother enjoying the spectacle. Leave them be. They're sorting out their hierarchy among themselves. This too is a kind of loyalty competition. I never wished for such loyalty, though. Even if you do nothing, they're willing to clear stages for you. Then what else is loyalty? Be happy and suck the honey. It was a very subtle kind of honey. Meanwhile, the chaos intensified. A music box only for you pours in its wealth. The eye living in the labyrinth reveals its hidden secret savings account. Goddess of Protection doubles the bid amount. The magician pinched his forehead. I'll change the manager of the 66th floor to Goddess of Protection. For a moment, the fox and the snake cried out as if the sky was tearing apart. Plus. Sword dance. Difficulty, B. Mission objective, the ruler of the 66th floor, Goddess of Protection, Wea, demands that you perform a sword dance. Note, if the Goddess of Protection finds the performance unsatisfactory, you must dance once more. Plus. The 66th floor was an ancient plain. The time was night, with a full moon hanging in the sky. In this unexpected moonlit night, I began to dance with a sword in hand. Even to me, it seemed like I might appear quite mad. Quest cleared. The 66th floor stage has been cleared. It was incredible. Congratulations, Death King. You're the first hunter to break through stages in this manner since the tower was established. I wish I'd be the last as well. Let's decide that after seeing the next floor's auction. The magician rolled his eyes. All right. Let's start the auction for the 67th floor. A music box only for you places a bid. The eye living in the labyrinth places a bid. Goddess of protection places a bid. Just then, the most crimson sommelier places a bid. Finally, a new participant appeared. The magician's eyes sparkled. He immediately raised his staff high. Sold. The manager of the 67th floor will be changed to the most crimson sommelier. Peep. Keek. Keek. I won't accept complaints. I'm both the host and the judge. The bid amounts are naturally confidential, so I can't disclose them. That's the rule I've set. The magician shouted. Hey, Death King. Hurry up and go. Before he changes his mind. And so, I did. 6. You have entered the 67th stage. The most crimson sommelier manifests. Have you ever heard of crocodile tears? It's said that crocodiles shed tears when they crunch down on their prey, becoming synonymous with insincere sorrow. What's the point of appearing sorrowful after killing, if killing is killing and sorrow is sorrow, they argue. Sniff. Sob. But the crocodile tears falling before me now seemed genuinely heartfelt. Sob. Hook, sob. It was a crocodile wearing a cloak. This crocodile, designed to walk on 2 legs rather than 4, pounded the ground with its hands, not its front legs. Dressed in a fine suit all over, not just a cloak on its shoulders, it would have passed for a respectable gentleman if not for its crocodile head. Why, oh why, does this happen to me? The crocodile gentleman was sobbing miserably. How despicable, Death King. Despicable. How could you resort to such underhanded tactics? You should have quietly waited for the other constellations to enter the auction, maybe for 100 or 200 years. Why? Couldn't you wait for that moment and hoard the stages? So, you were planning such a nefarious delay tactic, huh? Despicable creature. Never have I seen someone as vile, venomous, and despicable as you. It's not like I did anything, and yet here we are. Chapter 337, Blood and Alcohol, 1. 1. So, what are you going to do? I flicked the holy sword. The crocodile gentleman, who was already sobbing miserably, swallowed a scream upon seeing the tip of my blade. Hic. What do I do? What do you mean? Regardless of the circumstances, you've placed a bid. And you've won it. Now, whether it turns out to be poison or food, we need to determine who has the right to become the constellation of humans. That. You appeared before me because you don't want to lose that faith, don't you? A duel? 1-on-1? A fair and square fight? The crocodile gentleman looked at my sword. Gulp. His massive crocodile neck covered in scaly skin bobbed. Deal? Wait a moment. I didn't come here to fight you 1-on-1. Despite appearances, I am a gentleman. Then what did you come here for? Even if I have to surrender, my man, we should at least talk first, shouldn't we? After knowing who we are, then we can decide whether to turn it into poison or food, right? I lowered one eyebrow. You might not know because you've blasted through from the 50th floor to here in no time. Among the constellations dwelling in the upper floors, there's this thing called connections. It's just different in form and degree, similar to where humans live. Similar. After all, didn't the ox that harvests ruins collaborate with the eye living in the labyrinth to attack you? The crocodile gentleman pulled out a handkerchief from his suit pocket and kept wiping his forehead. Though being a crocodile, he shouldn't be sweating. In short, you're saying you're scared to fight me? That's not it.
Yeah.
Damn it. Scared. Ah. I'm scared. Are we done now? Where did such a person suddenly pop out from? Why are you getting angry at me? If possible, let's solve this with words. With words. Eh? Do you know how many divine powers you've consumed by now? Keep eating like that and you'll get indigestion. Young man. The regression of Musha, the information of Hishmith crits, and what was it, all sorts of constellations I can hardly remember. Eating you won't make me more indigested than I already am. Of course, that's a damn truth. The crocodile shed tears drop by drop. He was an honest gentleman. Ah, but when I look at you, young man, you seem quite transparent. At least, someone who tries to be transparent. You are. Then, shouldn't we first try to resolve this through dialogue, as it's the usual way? It was the moment I took on a thoughtful pose. The I living in the labyrinth cautiously speaks to you. I looked down at my wrist. There, coiled up like a wristwatch, was a thread snake. SSSSS. The thread snake raised its tiny head high, fretting whether I might hit it. It was quite cute. Though, in reality, it was none other than the notorious villain who turned countless humans into life-sized dolls for display. The I living in the labyrinth says it might be unnecessary meddling, but why? What is it? Everything that crocodile gentleman has said so far, without a single exception, has been a lie. The I living in the labyrinth secretly tips you off. I slowly shifted my gaze. In front of me, the crocodile was still wiping his non-sweaty leather skin with a handkerchief. Both my eyes and the snake's eyes were watching him side by side. The I living in the labyrinth makes a judgment. Of course, I don't expect us to understand each other through conversation from the get-go. Conversation, communication, it's not just about exchanging words. It's a kind of great achievement, isn't it? It's a lie. Perhaps the essence of a conversation is sharing time with each other. Time. Giving time to each other. Talking for 30 minutes now, to someone who has lived 30 years without the other, means nothing. But what about after a year? It's a lie. After starting a conversation, then talking again after a year, 10 years, 20 years, the time between two people overlaps for almost 20 years. Then, a new life continues, comparable to the past 30 years. It's a lie. I don't think I can earn your trust right from the start. However, I wish to be a constellation worth your time, worth getting to know slowly. How about it, Death King? The crocodile blinked. Would you allow me the opportunity to have a conversation with you? And the snake blinked as well. It's a lie. I slowly smiled. Interesting. I gently stroked the head of the still trembling thread snake with my index finger. The thread snake cried softly as if it would sink into the ground at any moment. Even the last statement was a lie. Asking for the opportunity to have a conversation was mixed with lies. No need to think about it. Starting from the word conversation, it's all a lie, isn't it? That's right. He's not asking for an opportunity to talk to me but an opportunity to ensnare me. That's his true intention. That would be the case. Literally, crocodile tears? I smiled at the crocodile gentleman. Very well. I saw the crocodile gentleman's eyes light up. Please arrange it. A place for conversation. 2. It was soon revealed that the conversation the crocodile gentleman spoke of was not a one-on-one conversation. It was a gathering including constellations whose powers were threatened by me, constellations whose territories overlapped with the domain I would manage, in short, constellations currently in dire straits. The most crimson sommelier has won the auction for the 67th floor manager rights. The eternal dance of the twins has won the auction for the 68th floor manager rights. The noble with dry handprints has won the auction for the 69th floor manager rights. Several constellations were waiting for me, sitting at a long table. Not just a long table, but excessively long. The table stretched endlessly, converging towards the vanishing point on both sides. The space arranged for the conversation followed the table, elongating. We could sit facing each other, but that was all. To get to the other side, one would have to use their body, not just words. Come sit down. Death King. Welcome. The crocodile gentleman greeted me warmly. We all wish to have a conversation with you. Despite appearances, everyone here is quite shy, so they only came out because I led the gathering. People, big or small, are naturally shy. It's a lie. I already know. I looked around at the faces introduced by the crocodile gentleman without losing my smile. It's an honor to introduce you to the eternal dance of the twins. A very rare pair of twin constellations among the stars. The twins sitting across the table nodded their heads at the same time, in the exact same moment, at the same angle. Nice to meet you. This is our first encounter. Even the timing of their speech overlapped. One had a high pitch while the other had a low pitch, yet they harmoniously created a chord just by speaking ordinarily. The twins were expressionlessly interlocking fingers with each other. Isn't it peculiar? The crocodile gentleman laughed heartily. It's not that each of them is a constellation on their own, but together they form a constellation. Perhaps they're actually one person, just appearing to be two on the outside. Who knows? Now, next is. I am the noble with dry handprints. Little one. A constellation in flamboyant attire spoke up. The constellation looked at me with eyes full of hatred. Eyebrows furrowed, forehead wrinkled, and the corners of the mouth twisted grotesquely. I expect nothing from you but. It probably wasn't just me that was hated. That expression was aimed at the masses in general. The anger must have solidified at some point and turned into skin. It was a face that hated something rather than someone, and to the question of what that something was, it could only answer with its own life. Only one thing. The noble glared at me. I only hope you understand my circumstances. Come on. Come on. Let's save such talks for later. The crocodile clapped his hands urgently, his short arms making the applause look clumsy. In honor of this meeting being successfully convened. Let's bring out the alcohol. With the sound of clapping, boom. The doors of the meeting room opened. From there, butlers dressed in evening wear walked out in a line. The butlers were carrying bottles of what appeared to be wine. Very, very precious wine. The crocodile smacked his lips. As my alias, the most crimson sommelier, suggests, I'm quite picky about alcohol. Brewing human emotions into alcohol, that is my blessed power. However, there was one flaw in the butlers who otherwise appeared perfect, their chests were hollow. It reminded me of Swiss cheese from a famous mouse cartoon. The butlers had holes right in the middle of their chests. The more desperate the heart, the more life's emotions are embedded, the fresher the aroma and the richer the taste when brewed into alcohol. There was no blood dripping or intestines showing from the hollow spots of the butlers. It was cleanly cut out, just like in cartoons. One of the butlers approached me and tilted the bottle. I always wander in search of humans' condensed emotions, their so-called sincerity. So, you might as well call me the constellation of sincerity. What do you think, Death King? Drip, drop. My glass filled up with a red liquid. Don't you think we have something in common? Cheers. The crocodile gentleman opened his jaws wide. His short arms couldn't hold a glass for him to drink by himself. The gentleman just opened his mouth, and a butler poured the wine into it for him. Gulp. The thick crocodile skin vibrated as the throat gulped. Gulp. Red wine leaked through the teeth, staining the gentleman's neck and white shirt. Delicious. That single word must be the truth, not a lie. Humph. The smell is foul. The ignoble elegantly tilted his glass with a scrunched-up face. The twins didn't use a butler to drink, nor did they lift their glasses. They sipped the wine through each other's lips while keeping their fingers interlocked. Not a single drop of the red wine spilled. The timing of swallowing and the gulping of their throats were perfectly synchronized. Perhaps the twins even breathe in and out at the same rhythm? The twins weren't so much drinking as they were ensuring they didn't lose hold of each other. Not just now, but in everything they do. To them, everything that passes by is merely a white background, and the only thing they always prove, the only fact they seek to demonstrate, is that they haven't lost each other. So. Indeed. I set down the glass. The level of red liquid inside the glass hadn't decreased at all. Slowly, I looked over the constellations seated across the table. Indeed, you are similar to me. The crocodile gentleman in a suit. The most crimson sommelier. One who takes others' hearts, indulging in emotions. The more secure my position as a constellation becomes, the more trouble it spells for you, I understand that well. The noble dressed flamboyantly. The noble with dry handprints. One who feeds on hatred, with anger as his backbone. That's why I'm pleased. The two with interlocked fingers. The eternal dance of the twins. One who needs nothing but your acknowledgement. I'm pleased because it's not someone else, but I, who will bring about your downfall. The constellations stopped moving. The ignoble stared at me quietly with his lips touching the glass. The twins, with their lips still pressed together, rolled their eyes simultaneously to look at me. The crocodile gentleman slowly closed his jaws. Then, he wiped the wine that had flowed between his teeth with a handkerchief. It wasn't sweat he was wiping off, but alcohol, not his own body heat but the blood of others that he had to clean with that handkerchief. Why is that? The crocodile looked at me with eyes full of cracks. If you were going to be hostile from the start, there was no need to have a conversation. There's no reason to be invited here, to come in like this, and bear the misfortune of facing 3 constellations at once. The butlers moved away from the table. More precisely, they backed away a considerable distance from my spot. They began to surround me, drawing weapons like knives from within their clothes. Why show your fangs to us here and now? This meeting wasn't created for talking, was it? I poured the wine from my glass. The red light embroidered beneath the chandelier. However, the wine did not spill over the table and overturn onto the crocodile's head. Splash! Blocked by an invisible barrier, the wine flowed down. Between where I sat and where they sat. A kind of curtain had been drawn over the table. You intended to fight from the beginning. And since you intended to fight, the wand of ages must have allowed the bidding. Since you were going to fight, you lure me to fight all 3 of you here. The crocodile gentleman blinked. That's troublesome. This was merely a precaution, a device prepared just in case. Death King, you're misunderstanding. It's a lie. It was a fact that didn't need to be pointed out. However, if that's what you think, it raises even more questions. Knowing it's a lure and a trap, why did you accept my invitation and come here? I wanted to see. I shrugged my shoulders. What kind of measures you had taken, what kind of strategies you had deployed. Above all, what you looked like. If there were talks, what kind of talks would there be? I wanted to leisurely observe it for once. So, you've seen. What do you think? I gripped the sword. There was a reason the Sword Emperor treated constellations like delicacies. Please come at me all at once. The crocodile gentleman's gaze hardened. You're underestimating us. Eyes slit like a cat's locked on me. Musha only formed an alliance with Hishmith Kritz, it wasn't that the two attacked simultaneously. You don't understand what it means to face 3 constellations at once. You will pay the price for that. Unfortunately. I grasped the hilt of my sword. That statement will soon become a lie. The constellations, all at once, leaped towards me. Chapter 338, Blood and Alcohol, 2. 3. Just before the crocodile gentleman charged at me, he opened his long snout. Oh, tower. Fulfill the promise. Behind the crocodile, dozens of butlers were lined up. Clang. The wine bottles they were holding dropped. Clang. Shattered glass burst into pieces. Dyed in wine, the fragments bloomed like royal azalea petals. Most crimson sommelier requests an oath to the tower. Sanctuary designation. Approved. The crocodile gentleman's authority was manifested. From this moment on, this place belongs to Most Crimson Sommelier. He who drinks blood and spits it out, worship him. It was a dense fog. The glass fragments sparkled and scattered in all directions. Red. Where they passed, a bright red haze remained. A red mist bloomed in the world. I am strong to the weak. The crocodile gentleman chuckled deeply. That was the sound of a crocodile's laughter. And stronger to the strong. And then we collided. Bang! The crocodile's staff and my holy sword clashed. Of course, I intended to slice through him at once by infusing my aura. However, the crocodile, engulfed in the red mist, seemed unharmed. I frowned. You didn't seem like a martial artist. To be honest, you don't look much like a martial artist either, young man. You'd suit being a butler more than a swordsman. How about it? I'm recruiting butlers, have you thought about changing jobs? I've already decided to become a ghost for the Ivantia ducal family. What a pity! I'll prepare a new house for you in the graveyard. I increased my speed a bit more. I divided my sword strikes into 3 paths and poured them out. Bang! Surprisingly, the crocodile gentleman caught up with my speed. With one hand, he adjusted his tie, and with the other, he swung his staff to block my sword. What? I was honestly surprised. Was he skilled enough to attack me? His realm seemed low. Just when I wondered if I had misjudged my opponent's skill, the bracelet on my wrist vibrated. The eye living in the labyrinth manifests its authority. Exposure. Your opponent's authority is revealed to you. Hishmith Kritz. The constellation in charge of information and now my subordinate, Jormungandr, exposed the enemy's true nature. Letters appeared in front of me, wriggling like a snake. Plus. Evil parasitizes on goodness. Owner, Most Crimson Sommelier. Effect, the authority of a vampire disguised as a crocodile. When the opponent uses their strength, that strength becomes his own, a truly simple yet troublesome authority. He collects the life, emotions, and souls of his opponents. If you sincerely connect with him and feel you are equals, it's merely a delusion. He sweetly savors the look in your eyes caught in the illusion. His true nature is a parasite. Most crimson sommelier is a parasite among parasites, and no one can withstand his authority alone. Plus. I laughed lightly. So it wasn't that his martial skills were high.
Ha!
Oh. Hishmith crits, is it? The crocodile gentleman clicked his tongue as if it were troublesome. So, it wasn't just being captured, you're actually delivering information to this young man. Oh, greatest of snakes! Aren't you embarrassed? I've always admired you, yet instead of seeking revenge on the one who brought you low, you've become subservient. Disappointing. That's a lie. The bracelet hissed sharply. The eye living in the labyrinth points out particularly that "I've always admired you" is a lie and hisses at it. There was a reason why constellations found it difficult to cooperate with each other. Twins. What are you doing? It's your turn. That difficult cooperation was, at least here, happening. Don't order us around. From the back, the twins kissed. The angle of the lips and the direction of their heads were exactly the same, causing their small noses to press against each other slightly. But without caring at all, the twins slowly parted their lips, looking into each other's gradually distancing eyes. Oh, Tower. Promise. For the first time, the twins let go of each other's hands. The eternal dance of the twins request an oath to the Tower. Rustle. The twins' hair, which had been holding shades of gray, changed. One turned stark white, and the other pitch black. The distinction between the white one and the black one was clear. Such sharp contrast between black and white. As if the world itself had split in two between them. Sanctuary designation. Approved. Good. Someone moved upon confirming this scene. It was the crocodile gentleman. The crocodile leaped backward in an instant. Swish! I launched a chasing strike, but it was blocked by the staff the crocodile swirled. Useless effort, Death King. Your realm is now my realm. The crocodile chuckled deeply. As the master of this place, I generously acknowledge the twins' intervention. The crocodile stepped back, and one of the twins, taking the vacated spot, rushed in. It was a substitution. The white twin, the white one, swung a punch at me with an expressionless face. From this moment on, this place belongs to the eternal dance of the twins. Joint ownership is recognized. I thrust my sword forward. He who inflicts and suffers wounds, worship him. Cleanly. The tip of my sword pierced the white one's shoulder.
Ah! Ah! Ah!
The white one clutched his shoulder and screamed. Unlike the crocodile gentleman, the white one did not display any skill to simply fend off my attack. One half of the constellation writhed in pain, shedding tears. Wondering why they recklessly charged in at that moment. It's okay. Far across the table, standing quietly, the black one smiled broadly. His jet-black hair seemed to absorb all gaze, whispering flowed. You're not hurt. Blood returned to the white one's eyes. I'm not hurt. It was madness deeper than pain. The white one swung his fist. As if he had forgotten the fact that his shoulder was pierced. I naturally extended my sword to deflect the punch, and in doing so, I cut off the enemy's arm. Ah, he.
Ah!
And right after I cut off the arm, I realized. It's okay. The wound I had opened on the shoulder was, before long, completely healed. You haven't been damaged. I unleashed a series of sword strikes. Left, right, uppercut, with a speed that the opponent couldn't possibly follow, I launched a relentless attack. The enemy's limbs were torn apart. Each time, the white one screamed. And each time, from afar, the black one softly whispered. You haven't been wounded, right? Young. Yes. Where an arm fell off, another grew. Crushed knees stood up again. I didn't hesitate to strike the opponent's neck, but it was futile. That neck shed its layer and grew anew. The black one chuckled. You are noble. No one can wound you. Except for you. Ah, right. Except for me. The black screams and the white whispers intertwined, muddying the air. We are complete. I narrowed my brows. Troublesome. No matter how fatal the wounds inflicted, they seemed meaningless. Even at this very moment, the white one, turned into a wreck, swung his fists. I turned the wreck into even more of a rag, but the enemy quickly recovered. You're not hurt. You are nothing. Nothing at all. The black one, with madness flowing in his eyes, kept charging relentlessly. While pondering what strategy might work, new letters were engraved in front of my eyes by the bracelet snake. The eye living in the labyrinth manifests its authority. Exposure. Your opponent's authority is revealed to you. And the power of the twins was laid bare. Plus. The triad complete alliance. Owner, the eternal dance of the twins. Effect, the authority to complete the world. If I interpret the world you are looking at, and you interpret the world I am looking at, then the world is complete just by that. A sorcery that closes the world. If I collect everything to match my size to the width of the world, the twins adjust the width of the world to fit their size by collecting nothing. If one of the twins is attacked while the other is unharmed, the attack is nullified. This applies to both physical and mental attacks. Plus. So, if the vampire parasitizes, the twins symbiotically coexist. The former being DPS, and the latter, tank. No choice then. In that case, the solution was to strike both the white one and the black one simultaneously. I instantly extended the shadow of my holy sword. The 4 swords unfolded were the authority of Goddess of Protection, the sister swords. Swish! While I was dealing with the white one, I leisurely sent the remaining swords with shadow sword techniques towards the black one.
Ah!
The white one's eyes widened. Even if the wound was nullified, the white one's martial skills were not impressive. He couldn't stop my shadow swords crossing through the air. No. Seeing the 4 swords coming towards him, the black one didn't move an inch. He just watched with a grin. There was a reason for that. Oh Tower. The last remaining member of the enemy party, the noble with dry handprints, closed his fan. Keep the promise. A voice imbued with aura echoed for a moment. The noble with dry handprints requests an oath to the tower. Sanctuary designation. Approved. From this moment on, this place belongs to the noble with dry handprints. The crocodile gentleman urgently shouted through telepathy. I have nothing to do with this. Joint ownership is recognized. A curtain spread over the table blocked my attack for a moment. Chung. One of the 4 swords was repelled. 3 remained. The sister swords flew through the gap created by the repelled companion. That was the moment the noble's authority was activated. He who is resented and despised, worship him. My sword sliced through the black one's body. Clearly, they cut. Hick?
Ah!
But the one who screamed wasn't the black one.
Ah! Ah!
It was the white one. The white one, who had been swinging his fist in front of me, suddenly knelt down, clutching his arms. Drip. Blood flowed from a wound I hadn't inflicted. I realized that all those wounds were supposed to have been inflicted on the black one. Indeed. I took a step back. There's no need to ask Hishmith crits for an exposure. And I raised my hand to retrieve the sister swords. Is it damage transference? That's right. The noble with dry handprints spread his fan. I can transfer the wounds someone suffers to another person, if it's justified. That's interesting. There's no way transferring wounds could be justified. I see it differently. The noble glared at the white one. Black. The white one was still moaning, clutching his wounds. However, the noble's eyes, while looking at the white one, were filled with nothing but hatred, just as they were when he looked at me. It's your fault. You're to blame. Ah. If you had stopped the Death King, your other half wouldn't have been attacked. There would have been no danger to your other half. It's because you're powerless, because you're weak. Wretched thing. Lowly thing. Lacking from birth. Thus, everything is your fault. If blood must flow here, it must only be yours. The sharp words mercilessly pierced the white one. With a stunned face, the white one looked up at his other half. It's okay. The black one was smiling gently. It's not your fault. Ah. It's all the fault of this Death King attacking us. You just tried to protect me. You wanted to protect us. You're fine. A few words healed the wounds. New flesh grew and swallowed the blood. The white one stood up, as if he'd never fallen, harboring quiet hostility in his eyes. I looked around. Most crimson sommelier. The eternal dance of the twins. The noble with dry handprints. A complete dealer, a complete tanker, and a perfect supporter. Oh, didn't I say so, young man? The crocodile gentleman spun his staff like a clown on stage. What it means to take on 3 constellations at once. Remember? You must have realized by now, but it's too late. Just fall from the night sky and hate your foolish past self. Certainly. I nodded. When constellations set their minds to a combined attack, it's indeed formidable. I'm a bit impressed. That's good to hear. Better to be defeated in admiration than to fall in despair, it will at least give you some self-satisfaction. However, you're wrong about there being 3 constellations. The crocodile gentleman blinked. What do you mean? You don't know me well, sommelier. Dueling isn't my forte. I gripped the holy sword. Since the days of hunting demon kings, I've excelled in brawls. Light flowed from the blade. Goddess of protection requests an oath to the tower. The crocodile gentleman opened his mouth in shock. But that brief moan was of no use in stopping me. More precisely, it was of no use in stopping us. Sanctuary designation. Approved. The voice of the tower echoed. From this moment, this place belongs to Goddess of Protection. Chapter 339, Blood and Alcohol, 3. 4. The Goddess of Protection is made up of 5 fragments. Those pieces are now emitting light around me. He is the one who is worshipped. Idol sword. The goddess is always respected by people. Born. He is an entity of expectations. An entity that must meet expectations. A being that must proudly raise its head until the end of the world. Because he is a monarch. He is the compassionate one. Compassion sword. The goddess always understands the wounds of people. Transplanted. Even if one does not suffer physical wounds, the heart is sown with scars transferred from others, harboring nameless screams in the heart. Because he is a monarch. He is the one who tests. Prayer sword. The goddess always makes judgments. Selected. Whether those who beseech her are sincere, or if they whisper lies to deceive. She tests whether a genuine plea will never be buried under false accusations. Because he is a monarch. He the one who sacrifices. Sacrifice sword. The goddess always suffers. Offers herself. As his time is eroded, the time of others blossoms, and as his pain deepens, the lives of others become radiant. Meaningless suffering is not allowed for him. Because he is a monarch. He is the one who saves. Salvation sword. The goddess always saves others. Abandons herself. She places her own parts that she wanted to protect, preferences, pleasures, tastes, aesthetics, on the cold scales. On the other side of that scale are others. Other people. To elevate others, to that extent, he constantly lowers himself. Must lower himself. Therefore. Worship. He is the monarch. The goddess of protection manifests. My sword shone brightly. Someone screamed. It was the crocodile gentleman. 5. The promised aphorisms are more than 4? The gentleman opened his eyes wide, looking at me in disbelief. It can't be. That's nonsense. The goddess of protection, surely, it must have been the constellation that constellation killer first tore apart. It must have been divided into 5 pieces. A cry of astonishment came through the large teeth of the crocodile. Even if you somehow collected and assembled the pieces, the last fragment, the final piece is still in possession of Constellation Killer. How exactly, Constellation Killer's sword? Indeed. Kim Yul had already kneeled before me long ago, yet the crocodile gentleman was completely unaware of this fact. Perhaps it was to be expected. The only constellations that could know this would be the ox that harvests ruins, who had pierced through my past, and the eye living in the labyrinth, who had read my information. Deception. Yes. It's a trick. Death King. You are not only the king of death but also the king of sorcery. But with such tricks, you cannot ... I have never played with nor allowed such play with my existence. A voice cut off the crocodile gentleman's words. It wasn't my voice. It's been a long time. The light leaking from the holy sword twisted into form. Brilliantly. Somehow, the light was not dazzling, as if one could keep looking at it forever. Crackle. Crunch. The cluster of light intensified. Not only the holy sword I held but also the compassion, prayer, sacrifice, and salvation, the 4 shadow swords, broke apart and were sucked into the light. To manifest completely in one body, truly, it has been a long time. And then, huge wings spread. Death King. There were 5 pairs of wings. My warrior. A thunderous sound echoed. As one pair of wings spread, it blew away the table. Boom! When the second wing spread, the walls of the hull were destroyed. The third wing spread, splitting the ceiling. The fourth wing caused a gale, and the fifth, the last wing, covered the sky of this world. The goddess of protection exerts her authority. The angel covered the sun, and 5 shadows were cast upon the earth. I will fight alongside you. Those shadows were the authority of the goddess. The territory cast by the goddess of protection. The world of shadows where only the white wings reign as the sole light, having pushed aside the sun and struck the sky, has descended here. I refuse. The crocodile gentleman screamed as if vomiting blood. The one who became light as a shadow. The owner of the 67th floor is not you. It's me. It's us. The eternal dance of the twins, and the noble with dry handprints, and we, the most crimson sommelier, are the true masters of this place. Your sanctuary will lose its light here. The crocodile's outcry was not just a struggle in vain. The administrator refuses co-ownership. The goddess of protection does not own this place. The sky turned blood red. The sun that illuminated this 67th world twisted from the form I knew well. The sphere that emitted white light suddenly turned black. As if a child had colored it with crayons, line by line, black was drawn. The most crimson sommelier manifests his authority. A black hole. Suddenly, where the sun was, only an abyss had been pierced. Overflow. From the hole as vast as a massive well, gush. A liquid thicker than water and stickier than alcohol leaked out. Gush, gush. It was blood. Red blood endlessly flowed from the well in the sky. Look. Every single drop forming this torrent of blood is entirely collected souls of mine. My lovely followers. The crocodile gentleman raised his arms. Drip. Blood poured from the sky. Blood pooled in the crocodile's small palm, overflowing through the thick webbed fingers. This place is my temple. My sanctuary. No one can deny me. That's so. The goddess of protection folded her wings, then spread them horizontally. Light burst forth. White wings cast shadows like a sword's crossguard, and her straightened body like a blade. The flickering sword, the goddess of protection, Wea, said. If so, I will cut you down. The goddess of protection manifests her authority. The goddess of protection is the administrator of the 65th and 66th floors. Wea extended her hand. Her fingers, curled like hooks, pointed towards the crocodile gentleman. The goddess of protection invades the 67th floor. And then, 5 rays of light burst from each of her fingernails, striking the crocodile gentleman. 5. This world is not subject to beginner protection. Battle for floor conquest begins. Currently, a battle for floor conquest is happening between the Lion World, Silver White World, Moon Knight World, and Banquet World, Taiguk World, Demon Realm World. Arg! The crocodile screamed. The 5 rays of light engraved on his body, like cracks in the earth spewing lava, were squeezing out blood-red wine from the crocodile's body without cease. The souls are dense. The goddess of protection said. Only a being that can suck the essence of the heart without hesitation can squeeze out such blood. Even a beast that eats flesh would feel compassion towards hairless cubs if it has fur, and even a scaly beast would stop hunting when full. The most crimson sommelier's existence fades. You were less than a beast, an insect. The most crimson sommelier's existence fades. Damn you. You got betrayed and utterly defeated by the very human you chose. A trash that couldn't even handle a lower-class constellation. Yes. I was such an existence. Wea calmly accepted and let the crocodile's screams pass. Just as a master swordsman deflects the opponent's sword strike. But before that, I was the founding monarch who established an empire. The blade that deflected the strike whirled around like a butterfly, spinning to strike the crocodile's shoulder 3 times. Arg! The most crimson sommelier's existence fades. The most crimson sommelier's existence fades. Stop! In the face of the audacious situation, the allies of the most crimson sommelier stepped forward after being momentarily stunned. The noble with dry handprints shouted at the twins. It's your fault. Why are you frozen? If you had properly played your role, the most crimson sommelier wouldn't have been injured like. Is that really the case? Of course not. The goddess of protection also has allies. Swoosh! There's a well-known weakness to skills that require a target to activate. The constellations blinked in surprise. In the blink of an eye, my fist was already surging through the air. Well then, try to collect out the rainwater with both hands. Meaning something along the lines that you will be able to collect some water however little it might be, it's still water. My fist plunged directly into the crocodile's abdomen. Boom! The vibration pierced through the crocodile's body and spread like waves through the surrounding air. Drops of blood were mixed in with the intangible waves. Hook. Your abdomen is sturdy. No hole has been made. I swung my fist again. This won't do. It's embarrassing. Thud. The same blood that was scattered around stuck to my knuckles. It's only proper that I, as Wea's master, should at least be able to do as much as Wea. Once again, I drove my fist in. Crook, you. A hole was made in the crocodile's abdomen. Thus, even if the noble with dry handprints transferred the damage dealt by Wea's sword strike to the twins, the amount of wine bursting from the crocodile did not decrease. The existence of the most crimson sommelier fades. The existence of the most crimson sommelier fades. The existence of the most crimson sommelier fades.
Ah!
The sky opened. As more wine burst from the crocodile's abdomen, blood gushed from the hole in the sky. Like a broken sewer during the monsoon season, blood gushed endlessly. The most crimson sommelier can no longer maintain authority. A baby crocodile, caught in the crimson flood and swept away, was probably the dismal end of the sommelier. Initiating rank adjustment. The most crimson sommelier's title is revoked. The quest of the 67th floor has been cleared. Updating the results of the floor conquest. The 67th floor is now under the management of the goddess of protection. Good. I turned my head. There the goddess floated. We exchanged glances over the fallen crocodile's remains. Yes, warrior. That was the end of our conversation. I ran towards the left. Wea flew to the right. Only the crocodile's remains were left in the middle, swallowed by the blood-red flood, swept somewhere.
Ah!
At the end of Wea's flight, there stood a figure in white. At the end of my path, there stood a figure in black. If attacking one side makes no difference. I threw my fist towards the figure in black. Then attack both sides simultaneously. Wea swung her wings at the figure in white. The noble with dry handprint manifests his authority. But just as the crocodile attempted, and failed, to block the simultaneous strike with damage transfer, the administrator refuses co-ownership. The noble with dry handprint does not own this place. The goddess of protection, now the administrator of this floor, deflected the authority just as the crocodile had. Damn it! The noble with dry handprint invades the 67th floor. Too late. The conflict erupted on both sides of the battlefield first. It was a fight that was disadvantageous to the twins from the start. The twins were only ever meant to play the role of tanks. Their martial prowess was not remarkable. On my opposite side, Wea swung her several pairs of wings simultaneously. Struck down. The figure in white was shattered to pieces. It's okay. The figure in black, now facing me, said to the figure in white. You're okay. Even as I approached right up to him, the figure in black did not resist. Perhaps he lacked the ability to resist. The figure in black's concern was solely directed towards his other half. It's okay. As long as I am here. You are. Yes. I swung my fist. As long as you are here, that is. A storm of punches ensued. The figure in black was fully exposed to my attack. So much so that he couldn't continue saying he was okay. His shoulder was hit, and his jaw was attacked. With the figure in black's words gone, there was no one left to negate the damage to the figure in white.
Ah!
The first to fall was the figure in white. Unable to deny the accumulating damage any longer, the figure in white eventually broke. Splash! Into the blood-filled surface of the horizon, the figure in white collapsed powerlessly. The fate of the figure in black was no different. Ah! The figure in black fell to the ground, onto a rock, his body shattered by my punch. It's a remarkable thing to grit your teeth and stand up again. I looked down at the figure in black. In contrast, the figure in black's gaze was not on me. Below the fluttering wings of Wea, he only stared intently at the figure in white, who was dimly submerged in a water's surface. If each time you became a little stronger, today I wouldn't have claimed victory. But instead of chewing, you spat it out. That's all. The figure in black smiled with his eyes. Finally, he turned his head, looking up with unfocused, pupilless eyes, filled with nothing but darkness. There are people in the world who cannot become stronger. I nodded. Silently. A moment later, the figure in black spoke. You guys can become stronger. His lips held a smile. Die, all of you. That was the curse left by the constellation of the twins to the world. The existence of the eternal dance of the twins fades. Initiating rank adjustment. The title of the eternal dance of the twins is revoked. The bodies of the figure in black and the figure in white disintegrated simultaneously into ash. Where the figure in black had lain, a parrot with only one wing raised its head. The quest of the 68th floor has been cleared. Updating the results of the floor conquest. Yes. I turned to look at the last remaining constellation. You bastards. The noble with dry handprint was furious. But it was a futile rage. As proven in old games, a lone supporter left alone can only quietly take the portal. A supporter who refuses to take the portal will only have their name displayed on the scoreboard. The noble must have understood such a fate. Yet, the noble still glared at me with eyes burning with hatred. Splish, splash. The sound of blood splattering as I approached, and Wea flying after me, everything reflected in his eyes seemed hateful. Now, there is no constellation left for you to transfer the damage to. The noble looked at Wea. The noble with dry handprint manifests his authority. The goddess of protection refuses. The authority is nullified. Probably, the noble tried to transfer the damage he was about to receive to Wea. But such a procedure would have required the consent of the other party. Naturally, Wea refused. The noble glared at me. The noble with dry handprint manifests his authority. The noble with dry handprint has chosen you to bear the damage he is about to receive in his stead. Do you accept the choice? I shook my head. The authority is nullified. The noble gritted his teeth. You must understand me. It's not my fault. Not a wrongdoing. It's your fault, all of yours, the tower's mistake. Everything is rightfully so. Therefore, you must understand my situation. I extended my hand. Gradually, Wea disintegrated. The 5 pairs of wings fell apart, turning into 5 swords. The 5 swords then merged together, forming into a single holy sword. No. I grasped the hilt of the holy sword. Your presence in the tower is already proof that you have been understood by the tower master. You mean me, dash dot. Fully. More than enough. The sword traced an arc. With a splash, something heavy fell into the crimson surface. The existence of the noble with dry handprint fades. Initiating rank adjustment. The title of the noble with dry handprint is revoked. A chicken fluttered up from the surface. It was a chicken with a red comb. The chicken, its white feathers dyed red, swam past my feet. Thus, the quest of the 69th floor has been cleared. Updating the results of the floor conquest. The alliance of the 3 constellations fell under my blade. You have earned the right to challenge the 70th floor. The path to the 70th stage was opened.